YouTube. We didn't. It didn't. You couldn't tell the difference in how long it took to initiate and stop the streams.
All right, we're coming back on Facebook now.
Thanks, bro.
I mean YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're back again. For how long, I don't know.
I'll prioritize a solution.
I'm not sure what's going on here on my end. My modem now is going offline and rebooting, which throws the router out of whack. And I'm having to manually reboot it. Yeah. One more time, Dave. If we get dropped again, that'll be it. Just plan on watching for a show next week. Hopefully. I'll get things worked out.
But I'm working on a solution so that we don't depend on someone's internet. So Johnny can start the stream and direct the stream as he does. If his stops, then then Ralph can take over.
Except I can't get it back on YouTube. I got the splash page. It comes in with the video, and then
yeah, like Andy said, it may take a little time.
Yeah, it seems okay, but I can't tell. I'm watching it in so many places.
But anyway.
Murphy's Law, yeah, you're right. The bear Babu says that's on Twitch chat. Murphy's Law, that's true. But sadly, that's what happens when we're trying to test something totally unrelated to his internet. Then his internet dies. That's what happens. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the whole thing we had set up to multicast had totally collapsed under it. That would surprise me.
No, it wasn't your fault, Michael. He says, clearly my fault. Don't answer any more of my questions. No, we will answer your questions.
Well, that was a good question, too. So, talking about wood kits. So, I use, of course, I love wood, working with wood structures, and it totally depends on what you're doing, where I prefer. If you're doing brick or something, acrylic is the name of the game. It's fast, it puts a skin layer on the wood, but there's other techniques that I like much better, like the colored stains from...
Hunterland.
That's right. Hunterland stains, that's right. To look, I also like painting with chalk mixed with alcohol. It's a really good way to get a faded effect, and you could lightly sand it to exaggerate that faded effect. Now, if you're looking for like a peeling effect, then I've done it a bunch of different ways with rubber cement and other ways, and they're okay, especially if you want a rather exaggerated effect. But the technique that we showed on one of the build shows, with me and Ralph and Lloyd, several of us were on there, using mineral spirits and a cheap acrylic paint. That is spectacular for a peeled effect. But man, every technique in the world. I mean, Ralph's not a fan of what's those little ones in the cups that you're so fond of.
Yeah, but hang on. There's a clarifier. I'm not a fan of pan pastels on plastic.
Absolutely. That's why I wanted to break them up on wood. This was a good case to show that you're not biased against them. They're spectacular on wood. I mean, completely for coloring wood, but really good for accentuating certain effects in wood. So that's pretty good. Honestly, every kind of paint material in the world. I haven't found a lot of use for for oil paints other than accentuating, weathering and details on wood. But I haven't seen a benefit to waiting 2 or 3 days for it to dry to deal with oil. But otherwise, every single paint source, depending on the end result you want.
Well, that's why I say your acrylic paints on your kits. You can go out and spend lots of money on really good acrylics, or you can go out and get the stuff from Walmart. The folk art stuff, Apple Barrel. I'm not sure what the other ones are.
All right, here you go. He's asked a question that needed to be answered too. Okay, I was afraid with these thin laser cuts it would warp the wood. Yeah, you gotta be careful with that, Michael. What a lot of people do is use some scrap wood on the backside to brace it horizontally and vertically, mostly horizontally across top and bottom and through the middle if you can, to keep your wood from warping.
Also, Johnny, you should be painting both sides.
Yeah, at the same time.
If you only paint one side, it's even when the paint cures, it's going to shrink and it's going to cause the curve to go to the painted side. So if you paint both sides, it keeps it flat.
And I've done that on, like, this one's a cheap run-of-the-mill kit put together too, and I braced the inside corners and around the bottom. I set my bottom up the same width. I don't go right against the bottom. I set it up one width so that on the layout I could put another square of this material to make a registration point that the house will stand on and lock it into position that way. So, but then up each corner with a piece of, square stock stuff that you can buy at Hobby Lobby for dirt cheap at 3-foot lengths.
Yeah, I would say probably paint the backside first, and then that way you can flip it over, just set it down on some little blocks or something, and then paint your front side while the back is still somewhat wet. They kind of dry at the seam.
Yeah, the blocks too. Weight is your friend.
Well, I'm talking about set on some blocks, like painter's points.
Well,
triangle.
First off, if you're going to build one of these fine scale kits, the wood kits and so on, get yourself a piece of 1/4 inch glass, at least 18 inches square.
Absolutely.
And work on the glass, because it's a perfectly level surface and that's what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, Andrew said, I'm back. Well, we've been back a few more minutes than you, so. If we go out again, Andrew, that's it. We'll just try it again next week.
Just assume that Murphy's against us.
Yeah.
It's summertime. People, the video's gone on vacation.
No, I'm having some equipment problems here too.
Okay, the equipment's gone on vacation.
Yeah, this router's about to go into the dump. It's been kind of dropping internet on me now for a month or a little longer.
I'm gonna ask the question, Ralph. Not that I need the answer, but because you only gave one dimension. How thick is your piece of glass?
I said 1/4 inch.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
You weren't paying attention. Remember, we're going to ask questions.
No, he was eating peanut butter. He was eating peanut butter and got some in his ears.
Yeah, I heard 18 inches square, but I just want to make sure that somebody didn't go out and buy one of those like glass tiles that you stick on the wall or whatever. That's 1/8 inch thick, right? And 18 inches square, you're going to end up bleeding. Is what's going to end up happening. Tempered glass.
Yeah. And the cheapest thing I found is
hang on, Andy. If you use tempered glass and you use a scriber or anything and you scribe the tempered glass, it's going to shatter.
It's going to shatter.
Okay.
It has to be regular. What do they call it? Double diamond float glass.
Yeah. But you can also spend a couple bucks and you can buy them with like beveled edges on them and stuff like that.
It might have my piece has chamfered edges. That was one of the benefits too. I priced buy a piece of glass at Lowe's or one of the home improvement stores. And glass is not necessarily cheap that way. I bought a cheap coffee side table and just used the glass off the pipe. That was $20 with a glass top, or $25 on Amazon, and it was less expensive than buying the glass by itself, and relatively nice size, chamfered edges, etc.
I use this polished stone.
Oh, I really, really want a heat stove or a soldering stove for being able to do a lot. Since I've got hot air, that's a problem to use hot air on nearly every surface. And I've got a silicon mat for soldering.
Okay, I can tell you what to do. You go to one of these cuisine stores for cooking, and buy yourself a pizza stone.
Pieces of stone. Here, this right here. They're used for high end.
A cutting board, a stone cutting board. It's the size.
No, it's not a cutting board.
Stone
It's-
killer.
It's a stone that you can stick in the oven and do pizza on.
Yeah, they got pizza stones and they got this.
Yeah, I had not thought about a culinary art store. I'm all over that. I was thinking about trying to find a stone dealer and try to buy their offcut a piece,
Yeah.
but
That's
not for me.
Well,
That's
You can do
marble,
that
isn't
too.
it, Chris?
What's that?
That's marble, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it might be cultured marble. I'm not 100% sure if it's natural.
Pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah.
No, it'll take the heat. If it's heavy and a natural poured material,
I don't use like a punch and a hammer on it, but I don't have any problems with anything I've used on it. It cleans up and it scrapes off or whatever. And I haven't gone through all of the glues yet, but I haven't found one that really sticks to it. But they do have it because it has, well, those are fuzzy feet I got on it, but the feet underneath, those are glued on from somewhere.
That's two-part epoxy. It's
Yeah.
rough on the underside, is it not?
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's not. The top part is polished.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
polished sealed. So, but estate sale, $4 and some change.
Go to a place that makes kitchen countertops. You can get those.
And then well, there's like the stone places that do the countertops, like
Yeah.
you were saying. If you go out back, there's usually a pile where they just throw a whole bunch of stuff that's broken or whatever, and
Mhm.
every now and then you end up with a piece like this. But
Yep.
it has no feet, so I put my own on it.
The thing with stone like that's about 3/4 of an inch thick. Am I right?
Oh, it's heavy.
No, I know it's heavy, but it's about 3/4 of an inch thick.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's any thinner, and I know this because my dad was in the monument business, if you have a piece of stone like that's just slightly thinner, and you apply pressure to it, it will crack along a fault line.
Yeah.
So by putting the feet on it, you're suspending the center part, which you don't want to do. You want to at least put it felt over the whole bottom.
Yeah, the second one he showed looked like he put a bunch of feet round in the center of it too.
Yeah, I had a whole bunch of feet on it. But yes, I do agree with you, Ralph, on that, except that I'm
For model making, you're not going to be applying a lot of pressure. I
Yeah.
realize that.
exactly.
It doesn't take much to drop one of those 1, 2, 3 blocks, and your piece of stone's gone.
Yes, it is, and I would feel really bad, but
So would the piece of glass, but
yeah, but for garage sale and free.
oh, can't beat it. Can't
You know.
beat it.
You can't beat that. Yes, but I have a fun time going to garage sales now. I always hated going to a garage sale. Never ever wanted to go to a garage sale until I got back into training. You need a blender to chop something up. You don't want to use your good one. Go to a garage sale. You'll find one for a couple bucks.
Yep, that's what I do. My coffee grinder as well.
Yeah, you might have to go to a couple of them to find it, but you'll find it.
well, there's so much of this stuff you can buy so cheap anymore. I think I'm on my second coffee grinder, maybe my third, but on my second coffee grinder for sure. But they're like $8 at Walmart new in the box. I just go buy one whenever they're wore out. And that's why I'm not afraid. I put ballast, I put stone in it, bust them up with coffee grinders. It's rough on them, but they're $8. And I've got one that's kind of crappy and old, and I've got that's kind of dull, and I've got one that's relatively new. If I was chopping up leaves, I'd use the sharper one. So this stuff's so cheap anymore.
But even if you went out and got one of those little coffee grinders brand new, it's not that expensive. So I think it's $25.
No, that's what I said. I buy mine brand new at Walmart for $8 in the box. Coffee grinder, $8.
Okay.
I mean, there's all kinds of things to dislike about Walmart, but there's something nice about that convenience. And IMRR, that's what I was thinking about with the stone, is not so much building on it. I like building models on glass, preferably. The stone is so in my case, is working with hot air soldering. Or I've got a little hot pot for hot glue, which actually works really good for working with the trees. Sticking it in the hot glue and sticking it on there. I just bought the thing. I haven't made a tree in a year or so, but I just bought it, some of the last trees I was making, and I rather liked it. But it's a little cheap, crappy thing. And what I really want is a really nice hot plate, like you would use in a chemistry class or something, that would be used in a laboratory environment. I want a hot plate, and I want multiple pots. So I can set a solder pot on it that already has my 60-40 solder in it, and I can put a hot glue pot on it and heat up each individual pot. But I need a stone surface that I can work on that hot bed with and set those various pots off onto the stove to cool. So it doesn't need to be large, but it's all for working with hot stuff.
You can epoxy. You take a piece of wood and put an epoxy coating over the top of it. Set it on there because epoxy is heat resistant.
Well, that's what we're going to do with
Here you go. Speaking of epoxy, I saved this for you before throwing it away. All right, because you are pink foam, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so pink foam, epoxy, right? Oh, we move it backwards. Epoxy resin.
Yeah.
Okay, so it didn't warp it. It didn't melt into it. It didn't eat it. This particular brand, and granted, you can. Well,
there's a problem.
If you get underneath it, you can pull it off.
But that's
because the skin is still on it.
But there's a problem. The styrofoam off gases. Everybody knows that's what all the anti-foam zealots will tell you is it shrinks and it off gases. But I don't have any problem with those constraints. But it does off gas. And Phil Wyman, for example, who's recently his layout down to move, had done his water over top of styrofoam, but it had off-gassed up through. No, I'm sorry, that was DeBottom, who it had off-gassed up through his resin of his river work. So what I do is put polyacrylic down on my bottom surface or on the styrofoam. I put polyacrylic down. So that's held up.
Yeah, exactly. But the point of it is yes, you can't put it straight on it, but it was more for. Epoxy is a thermal reaction, and so but this particular brand does not get hot enough when you pour it in 1/8 of an inch or less to melt that. Yes, you have to put a barrier. You're going to have to put a barrier coat down. But
that's right.
Absolutely, that's not going to get to your layout if you choose to use an epoxy if you pour it thin enough.
Absolutely, and like I was looking at these countertop epoxies, and I am going to redo my countertops.
That's what this is.
Epoxy. A lot of them get too hot or require you to work with a torch to cure them. So, but the one you picked out obviously works because it didn't bubble or anything.
No, it's not. You don't need the torch. You can use a heat gun. The heat gun will do the same thing. The heat gun will do the same thing. It brings the bubble to the top.
That's all it's doing. It's not curing it. It's bringing the bubbles to the surface.
I got you. That's what I did with the resin I've set so far. I used my heat gun with it too.
Yeah. Well, if you don't, I got perfect example.
There was a few rather persnickety little bubbles that I poked with oil and something. I did use a little solder for it.
This is what epoxy looks like if you don't gas it. If you don't heat it in some way, shape, or form, when it cures like this.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
I did this purposefully.
Yeah, you don't forget. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to see how bad this one actually was. All right. And then this actually may vary depending on how you mix it. All right. But if you take one pass, I don't have another clear one. But if you take one pass over it with a heat gun, there's no bubbles in it whatsoever.
Yeah, I have no, but I've done a better than a foot square, small section with the resin. I used the Woody's resin, but and I would do it. I like that stuff just fine. It's just way too expensive at the scale that I need it. I would have to buy too many boxes. So I need to buy it the way you did. I need to buy it by the gallon.
The two-part Woody?
Yeah.
The new two-part Woody, okay.
Yeah, I used the new two-part stuff. I tried, and I like it, but it's just, it would take, it used for that square foot, or maybe a little better than a square foot, it used a whole box, basically, give or take, for less than a quarter feet. You know, a little more than 1/8, 3/16.
So here's the problem with the stuff that you want to use. You want to use the stuff for countertops. You cannot pour that thicker than 1/8 of an inch.
At one time.
You cannot pour 2 levels, 2 layers.
Yes,
no, you can't.
Yes, you can.
It's designed for 1 layer. I went to the manufacturer, and this is called crystal clear, and it's meant for bar tops and so on.
Yeah, change brands.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different formulations. That's the problem.
Yeah, 6 of you can't talk at one time.
No kidding.
But the problem is there's so many formulations, and if you go to a countertop expert and say, I'm looking for the resin that will be based on my modern railroad, nobody has that information. So it's another one of these things that no matter how much information's on the internet, I think it's going to require some experimentation. But it is so much cheaper that a little experimentation is worth, is probably worthwhile.
All you have to do when you go to your supplier is you ask him, can this be poured in multiple layers?
Absolutely.
How thick can I eventually have this?
Well,
and they'll tell you.
Bang for buck in quality, what I found so far is the best one is Stone Coat. You can do multiple layers, and depending on which one you buy, you can pour it 1/8 of an inch thick. You can pour it 1/4 of an inch thick. You can pour multiples, depending on when you're pouring over it. Okay, I mean, you wait till it sets and it's a little tacky, you pour straight over it. You wait till it cures out 7 days later, you put a light scuff on it and you pour over it. That's how it's always been. I've worked with epoxy for many, many, many years. Even before people were doing it with art, I was fixing boats with it in layers. You can pour over it.
Well, I've watched a lot of these makers that are doing these river tables and stuff, where they take wood and they bust out or cut out or use it where it was naturally thrown out, and they're pouring those full of resin. Some of that's 2 inches thick. I mean, they're built. It's unbelievable. I mean, I can't imagine how expensive, but they're by the $5 ton.
They're pouring that as super cast, and it pours 2 inches thick, and it's $150 for a gallon and a half.
Right, that's right. And they're pouring like massive amounts of it. And it is expensive at that level. I watched a bunch of the videos of countertop people and maker people, but you can't get the information out of them that's relevant for working on styrofoam and some of that. Tim Wyman says Envirotex can do more than one pour, and it can. Envirotex is a great choice. And Magic Water, both are great choices. The problem with both of those resins, the only problem I can think of, so Magic Water, according to Kathy Millett, who done some tests on these two, Envirotex has a tendency to yellow more than Magic Water does. And the only other consequence is cost, because you're buying a small.
No. You remember when I did the Star Wars diorama?
Absolutely.
So that's almost a year ago. Okay? There's Magic Water. it is still flexible.
Yeah, the hardener is either you had a problem with your hardener.
This was poured, and I got another hardener. I went back to him and said, it's not coming up really hard. And
Yeah.
he said, I'll send you a new hardener and I'll send you some new product.
Yeah.
So there it is. It didn't do anything.
Well,
This is the stuff from Woody's. It's hard
Yeah.
as a rock.
oh,
Hard
mine
as
is
a rock.
yeah, mine's is hard. The piece I did on the layout is like I cut a piece of styrofoam out and shoved a piece of glass in. It's as hard and perfect as a piece of glass, as clear or foggy as the tint that was in it. It's spectacular. It's exactly the stuff from Woodland said. It's exactly the result I want in color, in transparency, with the murky whatever. It's perfect in every way, other than the fact that it would cost me $300 to do the rest of the rivers on the layout with it.
Did you pour those in wintertime, Ralph?
It probably was winter, but
No, it was in the fall.
It was in
Yeah.
the fall. Okay. The only reason I was asking is because I know with like clear coats on like automotive clear coat, I got a batch that froze one time, and it dried, but it never cured. It never set up. It dried like that, and it stayed soft, but it never got hard. And come to find out, it froze at one time. That's why I was curious if it.
When I contacted him, I showed him a video of doing this.
Yeah.
After he sent me the new product, and he said, well, it is hard, but it's not permanently hard.
Yeah.
If you set anything on top of this, it's going to leave an impression.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not really super shiny either, like it should be, huh? Yeah.
Well, I can't tell now because I've had so many finger marks on it, but it was nice and shiny when I first
it's
did it.
not going to age well.
Yeah, but I mean, you're gonna leave. You're gonna. I mean, if it's that soft, you're gonna leave fingerprints. You know, you're gonna leave impressions on it, right?
It's just
Well,
not going to age.
it's the body oils that make it not so shiny. I mean, it is shiny to some degree.
Yeah, I mean it's shiny. It's not glass shiny like the resins like we would prefer. They're great, and once I need to go back and put waves on top of it anyway, so it doesn't have to be spectacularly shiny. But I mean that's kind of the idea. I mean honestly, even the polyacrylic is actually quite good. It just doesn't hold up versus an oil-based polyurethane, which is hard, shiny, and quite hard. The polyacrylic, and that's what I was telling my wife when she was refinishing a piece of furniture. The problem with working with the polyacrylic is it scratches so easy. It just doesn't have the hard surface that an oil-based product would have.
Yeah. See, this isn't cured all the way either yet.
Well, and
But I mean, you can only bend it one time. When you bend it back, it breaks. I mean, it's on its way to being cured. I mean, this is the tabletop stuff. It's
All
dry.
right, Andrew, we'll catch you later. Have a good one.
It's dry in a few hours, overnight. But it takes a few days to cure.
right, yeah, it takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
Lex Parker, who's done some of the best resin work, he's in the short list of people that have done spectacular resin work in our hobby. And he done the single best waterfall I've ever seen done. He and Kathy Millett, there's a few of them that do it mostly with resin, and he's done spectacular work with that. But he uses resin and way ups the hardener count in it. He's buying it by the gallon. I'm not sure what he's using, or maybe he is. Maybe it's Envirotex, but he's way up it. It's regular.
He used Envirotex. I know for a fact.
And he upped the resin count, upped the hardener count in it. So, especially for working with the waterfalls, it hardens quicker, and surely it's getting even harder. So, I am inclined, especially depending on how this works when I buy this stuff by the gallon, I am inclined to buy, to use a higher count of hardener in it.
The only reason it works is because it's in a non-structural place. All right, because what's happening is this. It's crystallizing on the inside because it's drying too fast, and it's becoming more brittle than what it needs to. Now you're on a small scale in a waterfall scenario, okay, where it's not doing anything, so it's doing what you want it to do. Now, if you use that same theory trying to fix something in real life, okay, you're going to make a weak repair, right? Using that kind of theory of adding more hardener to a resin. Because one is that it goes too fast, or faster than what it was set up to, and then two, you have voids inside the structure of non-catalyzed hardener.
Right, it's not making as tight of molecular bonds.
Well, that, and then you actually have pockets of hardener, depending on the type of hardener that it is. You know, if it's a hardener where it's a percentage where it uses like 1%, okay, to by volume, or if it's a 1-to-1. You know, I mean, if it's a 1-to-1 and then you're using, or a 1-to-half, and then you're using it as 1-to-1, you're going to have huge pockets of a liquid hardener inside the resin that aren't cured.
Well, I'm only thinking about upping my hardener count by 5-10%, enough to, kind of exaggerate the circumstance. And then when it comes to mixing it, I'm a massive fan of mixing with the drill. I rarely mix up paint without taking my drill of the thing.
That comes down to the specific resin, because if you use it like a tabletop resin, okay, you can use a drill, all right, because you're going to gas it. But if you use a casting resin and you use a drill, you're going to introduce so much air into it that you're going to have nothing but bubbles, and you'll never get them out.
Yeah.
Oh, it hardens too quick to do that. Okay, well, see, I have a little.
No, they get trapped. They get trapped. You can't get them out.
It's just the type of resin that it is. So
even with a gun, not enough bubbles will come out. So I was started for a long time to buy one of those little bitty paint mixers, and I run into a little mixer that I can stick in my dribble. So now I just stick it in the flex bit of my dribble that's hanging up in there, mix my little thing of paint, and I'm ready to paint. And I didn't need to buy a dedicated unitasking tool. I've got my dribble with a little mixer. Now that works great for working with the little paints and stuff, but I understand why I should not do that with resin, though.
You know, like I said, some resins you can whip with a paddle, and it'll turn white, and then you pour them thin enough, okay, to where when you heat it or torch it or whatever, the bubbles come out. But a casting resin, okay, if you want to pour it deeper, then the bubbles aren't going to come up out of the bottom.
Okay.
So, and then you can buy it. If you look, there's a sealing resin. Okay, there's a sealing resin, a tabletop resin, and a casting resin in epoxy. All right. Then you get into the urethanes. All right, and you have the same thing. And then the type of hardeners that they use. All right, and the smell that goes with it. You know, the thing that goes with epoxies, or most epoxies, is that there's 0 VOCs because they're 100% solids. They have an aroma while they're drying, but they're not releasing any VOCs. But I've just watched probably about 100 hours of epoxy resins.
All right, Michael, we'll catch you later. He said my job is done here. I've successfully started a half-hour discussion on paints and rosins. See you next week. All right, have a good one.
Have a good night. Well, somebody has to give a topic, right?
Well, that makes up for him kicking us offline a couple times in a row.
Yeah.
And Eric, IMROO.com. With all this fake water talk, it makes me glad I'm all the dry deserts of Arizona.
Yeah, water's a challenge. And something that you about have to get right. You know, I've said it's tough. That depending on what you model is what you have to totally care about. I model Appalachia. The couple things that are critically important are trees and track work and stuff, because it's all going to be so front and center on my particular layout. But trees, you just got to get trees right. But just about everybody has to get water right, except for the folks that model Arizona. the rare exception of bottlers that don't have to do any water whatsoever.
No, but you got to get those painted rocks right.
That's
Yeah, I
right.
haven't got my rock work.
I mean, depending on what part of the desert you do, I guess, or whatever. But like the red rocks and all of that, you got to get those right. Yeah, I mean, it has its own challenges to do desert. I've seen desert done really nice, and I've seen desert done really bad.
That guy who does Mesa something railroad, he models that Arizona tall rock work using a type of foam called balsa foam balsa foam that's fairly expensive, but is normally used by mold makers or whatever to make a master mold with, or red shape, which is what a lot of the studio guys and special effects guys and Adam Savage and those kind of guys are using red shape to make a base mold to pull vacuum form over, which was something I was talking about a few minutes ago with 3D printers. A vacuum form is a super simple machine to make, and one of the most essential things for every modeler to probably, if you're going to get into 3D printing and mold making, gosh, a vacuum former is a great place to start because it's super simple, and everything that hooks to the vacuum form is useful for other stuff. So that's what I'm headed down the path of working on. But yeah, Tim, little drink. That's what I was thinking.
Let me know how that works out for you, because I don't see it the same way. I don't see a vacuum former as the way to go.
No, I'm thinking making the you're right, 3D printing a positive, but using and making silicone form.
Yep.
So all the guys, the question is, how do you get the positive? Or whatever, or how do you get the negative? Do you make a positive? It's whatever. And then how do you make a negative?
Exactly right. You have to have either the real thing, or you have to carve a plug to make the mold of.
Yeah, and it depends on what you're doing. Okay, so my thinking was, I want a vacuum former for a couple reasons. I can make little wood shapes. I can pull a vacuum over it with some acetate or whatever, and then make molds real easily of stuff. That there's a few reasons why, but mostly because I also get a vacuum chamber out of the deal, because I need a vacuum chamber to pull vacuum and then suck it, to open the vacuum up to pull the form down. So I already want that vacuum chamber. So I'm getting a vacuum chamber, adding a space heater to it is a pretty negligible difference, and I have a full mold making setup. And where the idea for the vacuum form came from is watching the special effects guys. And that's why I think it would be right up your alley, Ralph, because all the guys that I watch
special effects guys.
The guys making
so the special effects guys are based on the 10-foot rule, not the 6-inch rule, the 10-foot rule. So in a vacuum form, you cannot put the detail.
No.
You can get the general shape, and then you have to add the detail. So
you get mold detail in anyway.
If I make a silicone mold of that plug, I can put all the detail I want into that plug, and then make a silicone mold, and I get the same thing every time, and I don't have to do anything to it.
Yeah, I realize that it's not the right tool for every job. There's no question about it. It's only the right tool for a few sets of jobs. It's just an easy thing to start with.
You see, you're not going to be able to do that with a vacuum mold, and this is simple.
Yep, that's right.
You're not going to be able to even get that with a vacuum mold. All right, this is a silicone mold.
All you're going to get is the brim of the hat, the shape of the face, and a little bit of a bump where what looks like a beard. That's all you're going to get. No detail.
But I'll probably need to watch some more video on that to decide whether. But I was thinking, for a lot of the casting that I'm interested in starting casting with, doing plaster casting, a dental plaster casting for my bridge piers.
That's the same as using a silicone mold. Same thing.
Yeah. I mean,
your plug or your master has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it's the size too. I mean, if you look at like a lot of those people, like Adam Savage's machine is like a 4-foot square. They're huge, and they're doing big. They're doing well. I'm sure they make smaller ones, but I mean, to sit there and to cast stuff this size, I mean, now granted, I know this isn't train stuff, but
He's also probably pulling like negative 50 or 60 atmospheres too on it.
Well, that's why I want a vacuum chamber. So there are people.
It doesn't matter how much of a vacuum you put on it. You're not going to get the detail. And in order to get the detail where the eye pockets are and everything else, you have to have holes drilled through the eye to the surface so the vacuum can pull it down.
No, it'll pull it tight. It'll pull all the air out of there. If you use a vacuum chamber,
it won't.
will pull all the oxygen out from under the plastic. All the oxygen that's in there to pull it out from under it. It can't leave pockets of unless the plastic sticks to your butt.
I disagree with you.
All right, well, I'll tell you what. Let's. Hey, this is another 6-hour debate here, and I've let it go for quite a while since we had so many interruptions in the start of this. So appreciate everybody coming in. This is hopefully we're going to get my internet and everything straightened out, but. Tonight was the first night that we have streamed on 4 social medias at the same time. YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Unfortunately, right now, I can only see the chat on YouTube, but we're going to work on that a little later to get that straightened out so we can do the chat on all the different social medias. So we certainly don't want to leave anyone out at all. But appreciate everybody coming in. And we only got 2 more shows this month, and we'll be starting back into our regular season. So that'll be in September, and the first show will be on September the 10th, which will be Andy's Bill show. So we'll have the new schedule up before the season starts. So everyone have a good night, have a good weekend. Try to stay cool if you're in parts of the country it's hot. We shall catch y'all later.
Night, Johnny.
Goodbye. Appreciate y'all coming in.